Welcome to Yahoo Finance Sports Report, a unique look at the business of sports, brought to you by Yahoo Finance and Yahoo Sports. I'm your host, Joe Pompliano, and I'm here to coach you through the financial game. Today, we've got FIFA 2026 Chief Venues and Operations Manager Bill Squires stopping by the show to talk about all things World Cup and so much more. Let's huddle up and get right into it. We are kicking off this week with Pomp's Playbook, where I take a look at some of the biggest headlines in sports that you and your portfolio need to know. First up, Dick's Sporting Goods announced last week that it has acquired Foot Locker for $2.4 billion. Dick's is paying $24 per share in cash for Foot Locker, which is a 90% premium on Foot Locker's share price today. Foot Locker shareholders also have the option to receive 0.1168 shares of Dick's common stock in exchange for shares of Foot Locker stock. Now, Dick's says that Foot Locker will continue operating as its own business unit within its portfolio of companies, which also includes the Golf Galaxy and Public Lands retail brands. Foot Locker is also the owner of the retail chain Champs Sports. However, purchasing Foot Locker will expand Dick's business outside the U.S., with Foot Locker's global presence, and increase its retail locations to 3,200 stores worldwide. The deal is expected to close in the second half of 2025, and Dick's plans to finance the Foot Locker acquisition with a mix of cash and new debt. Next up, the San Francisco 49ers are selling a 6% stake in their franchise at a record $8.5 billion valuation. The 6% stake will be split up between three Bay Area families, with 3.1% going to the family of Vinod Khosla, the managing director of Khosla Ventures. Another 2.1% will go to the family of Byron Dieter, a partner of Bessemer Venture Partners, and 1% will be purchased by William Griffith, a partner at Iconic Capital. Now, selling a 6% stake in the franchise enables the 49ers to access capital while still keeping majority control within the York family, who have owned the Niners for nearly 50 years. And if the minority stake sale is approved by the NFL, Jed York will still control about 91% of the team moving forward. The cash from the sale also comes at a great time for the 49ers, who officially made Mr. Irrelevant Brock Purdy their franchise quarterback after signing him to a 5-year, $265 million contract extension last week. To round things out, billionaire Mark Cuban will become a general partner of a new sports-focused private equity fund called Harbinger Sports Partners. The former Dallas Mavericks majority owner and Shark Tank star will join forces with venture investor and Atlanta Falcons limited partner Rashawn Williams, as well as former AMB Sports and Entertainment CEO Steve Cannon on the new venture. Harbinger Sports Partners is planning to raise $750 million by 2027 and will look to secure around 15 minority stakes in franchises across the NFL, NBA, and MLB. These three leagues are key for Harbinger Sports, as each one now allows minority investments in their franchises from private equity funds. Now, Harbinger Sports still needs to be approved by the NBA, MLB, and NFL for minority investments. However, given the strong experience in Atlanta sports ventures between Williams and Cannon and Cuban's ownership tenure with the Dallas Mavericks, I expect Harbinger Sports to be approved by each league sooner rather than later. This week for the deeper dive, where I give you a play-by-play analysis of news in the sports world and its significance to your bottom line. We're talking about the Portland Trail Blazers. Now, the Portland Trail Blazers were recently put up for sale by Jody Allen, the sister of late billionaire Microsoft co-founder Paul Allen. Allen purchased the Trailblazers for $70 million in 1988. And while Portland may be one of the NBA's smallest markets, recent sales for teams like the Boston Celtics at $6.1 billion and the Phoenix Suns for $4 billion, combined with the NBA's new $76 billion media rights package, may push the Blazers' final sale price closer to $3.25 billion or maybe even $4 billion. However, the most interesting part about the Trailblazers sale is the potential domino effect that it could have on the Seattle Seahawks. In addition to the Blazers, Paul Allen bought the Seattle Seahawks in 1997 for $200 million. But when Allen died in 2018, he wasn't married and didn't have any kids, so he left both the Blazers and Seahawks to his sister, Jody. There was a catch, though. Paul Allen's will explicitly stated that Jody Allen couldn't keep the teams. She had to sell the teams and donate the money to charity. The will didn't include a specific timeline for each sale, but listing the Trailblazers for sale now makes sense given that the league's new broadcast deal will elevate the team's enterprise value, and other recent high-priced NBA franchise sales have enhanced price discovery. The Seahawks are a more complex situation, however. Jody was never going to sell the team before 2025 because she would have had to pay 10% of the sale price back to the state of Washington. This is because Paul Allen's initial offer to buy the Seahawks was contingent on the team partnering with the state to build a new stadium. So the state of Washington included a ghost equity provision in the deal that said that the state would be guaranteed 10% of the sale price if the Seahawks were sold within 25 years of the stadium's bonds being issued. This obviously disincentivized Jody Allen to sell the Seahawks before that date. But now that the ghost equity provision has expired, a sale could happen at any point. So keep an eye on the Seattle Seahawks, because once Jody Allen puts the team up for sale, every American billionaire will be watching. NFL franchise valuations have appreciated at 15% annually over the past decade. And with the NFL expected to opt out of its media rights package in 2029, owners are in line for another $100 billion payday. We've made it to the one-on-one, a conversation where I get to break down news and sports with a key player in the industry. This week, we're talking to Bill Squires. Bill, thank you so much for joining the show today. Now, I want to mainly focus on the 2026 World Cup. You have a ton of experience over the last couple of decades designing, constructing, and operating some of the biggest sports stadiums in the country. Now, they've obviously selected a number of stadiums in North America specifically for this tournament. Can you talk us through how they selected these stadiums, but also if you think they're the right stadiums to be selected to host the World Cup?
Sure. It goes back to 2017 when the bid was put out, the United States, Canada, and Mexico, and every city, it really kind of the United States had an opportunity to bid on it. And there were multiple bidders, and some of them decided not to continue with the bid, where 11 did, and they selected 11 stadiums, which happened to be all NFL stadiums, which means gives you great capacity throughout various parts of the country. So I think they did. I think they selected 11 very fine facilities.
And these facilities, can you just talk us through some of the changes that they may have to make? I know the Kansas City Chiefs are undergoing a renovation right now. There's a few others that are going to have to do similar renovations to get ready for FIFA standard World Cup games.
Well, because I'm on the New York, New Jersey host committee, I could speak specifically to MetLife Stadium. And one of the things we had to do is we had to modify the corners to accommodate the international soccer standards. The international soccer dimensions are 105 meters by 68 meters. So we had to cut out the four corners to accommodate the corner kicks. Also, because we are a synthetic turf field, we're going to have to put in natural grass surface. And we did that back in 1994. And I believe 6 of the 11 stadiums that are hosting World Cup matches in 2026 all have synthetic turf, so they'll have to do the same thing. So there definitely are some modifications some venues have to make.
How much does it cost to replace synthetic turf with natural grass for just one event or a few games at a time?
Well, we do a lot of friendlies. So international friendlies, where we lay natural grass over the synthetic turf, which is not that expensive. When you think you have an 80,000 seat capacity and you're selling tickets at a pretty good, cost. But for World Cup, we actually have to put in a system where we have irrigation. We have a sub-air system that either blows air or sucks air. So it becomes a much, much more involved process. I'm not sure if I want to share the actual cost, but I will say it's in millions of dollars.
Okay, yeah, that's my expectation, or at least what I was expecting to hear. But one of the reports that we've seen over the last number of months leading up, and I'm sure we'll continue to see as the 2026 World Cup approaches, is that the U.S. travel and transportation infrastructure may not be ready to handle what it's going to have to handle during this tournament. Do you have concerns around that, or do you think that it'll be ready to go by the time this tournament rolls around?
Well, it's not like we have an opportunity to build any new railroads or any new roads. So, this was actually taken into consideration when we bid on the project. Like I said, back in '94, we had World Cup soccer, and we did have a train station at the MetLife Sports Complex. We do now, but transportation, everything is a concern. Safety and security are a primary concern. Transportation is absolutely actually a concern. But I will tell you, we've been dealing with stakeholders. I've been on the project now since December of 2023, and the meetings I have 4 or 5 calls every day, whether it be security related, transportation related, practice facility related. They're related. We're talking to everybody. So we are just in New York, New Jersey. You think of the Mass Transit Association, New York, the Jersey Transit, Amtrak. Every different transportation authority that you possibly think of, highways, roads. We're talking to ferries. Ferry systems, everything. So we know we're going to get 80,000 people for every match. We know we're getting a lot of people that have never been to the stadium before. So we have to look at that. And also a challenge for us is, although we have 24,500 parking spaces at the MetLife Sports Complex, half of those will be taken up with activations and security and broadcast compounds. So we will not be able to park the normal number of cars that we do for a concert or a Giants or a Jets game. So we have to accommodate for that. There'll be shuttle buses, there'll be parking rides, but we'll be prepared. There's no question about it. And I hope, and I believe that our sister venues throughout, Mexico and the United States and Canada will be as well.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point regarding the activations that probably many people don't think about. But based on your experience working on the 1994 World Cup, I guess two questions out of that, right? Is what did you learn from that that has to be applied to this to make the tournament a little bit better? But also, just generally, what is needed for the US to hold a successful event in 2026 in your eyes?
Great question. So, one of the things we've talked about a lot with FIFA, and I know this because I did work the '94 World Cup. One of those, I think, one of the few of the 11 venues, or even the country, that have worked in their second World Cup in the United States. But the fans are different. We know that everybody has to understand they're different than a Giants or a Jets fan, or people who come to a concert. They know their way around the venue. They've been there. In most cases, we all speak English. So we have to be prepared for everything. We prepared for everything in '94. We expected the worst, but we actually got the best. We had very, very, very few issues. I recall one in particular, but it wasn't really that much of an issue. And we hosted 7 matches along with a semifinal, which is Bulgaria and Italy. So, we'll be prepared. And it's, we've had people take trips to Europe. We have, to look at the Europe championships. So we know what takes place over there, and we expect the same thing here. There's no question about it. We expect an additional 1 million people just in the New York metropolitan area, and these are people with and without tickets. So we have to prepare for them for fan fests and pop-up watch parties and whatnot. So listen, I think every venue was awarded the opportunity to host these games really knew what they were getting themselves in for. But the economic impact is absolutely huge for every area. The NFL talks about 135 million people watching the Super Bowl. Great numbers, but we're expecting 3 billion people. 3 billion people. That's like 30% or 35% of the planet to be watching the final at MetLife Stadium on July 19th, 2026.
Yeah, that's amazing. And can you just explain a little bit more about the economic impact of let's talk about the final, right? Because I think a lot of people, when they hear economic impact, they sort of throw the number in the wind and they think that it's sort of made up to some degree, or maybe it's inflated because it's sort of hard to calculate. But in my experience, especially for these premium events like the World Cup final or a Super Bowl, sometimes it's actually really accurate. Again, it's hard to determine what goes into it and what actually makes sense, but it's a huge number. So if you could just give us a little insight into how those numbers come about, but also what the expectation is for the match and the final in New York.
Right. Well, listen, FIFA does their homework. They were able to tell us exactly, not exactly, but pretty fair of what countries will spend how much time they'll spend in each area. Now, right now, we don't know what we know the dates of the matches. We don't know who the teams are yet. Don't even know what times they're going to play. But there's good estimates they can provide. And so you're talking about 1 million people. I mean, listen, I've worked 11 Super Bowls. I know about the economic impact, and that's over maybe a 4, 5, 6 day period. We're talking 39 days in the New York, New Jersey metropolitan area. So, you talk about hotels, you talk about airfare, you talk about, just taxes on food and whatnot. I mean, the people that come here will now rent cars. They'll probably take Ubers or take mass transit. So, I mean, there's a way to really kind of calculate that. But I think the numbers are coming up that are pretty. They're large. I mean, we're talking about billions and billions and billions of dollars across the country, and I think they'll be pretty accurate. And to
Yeah.
answer your last question, to make it successful, I think we have to have buy-in from. The one thing I know we've been doing here in New York, New Jersey, and I believe on other venues as well. We've really got. We're really meeting with stakeholders. I mean, there's more I've been doing this for 38 years, and we're talking to people that I never even thought I would talk to. And the level of cooperation across, I mean, everybody is getting it. This is a monumental event. I mean, it's going to be the most watched, most watched sporting event in the history of the world, because we have 48 matches rather than 32. So we're very proud to have the final at MetLife Stadium. We had the semifinal in '94. I still think we should have the final, but they had it at the Rose Bowl, and Rose Bowl had 100,000 seats. Giant Stadium at the time only had 80. So, but I think they picked the right venue, and I think there's no doubt in my mind we're going to be ready.
All right, we've got to take a quick break, but we'll be back with more of my conversation with Bill Squires right after this. Welcome back to Yahoo Finance Sports Report. I'm your host, Joe Pompliano. I'm here with the Right Stuff owner and former general manager of Yankee Stadium, Bill Squires. Moving outside of the World Cup specifically, one of the trends that we've seen over the last number of years are these mixed-use developments for sports stadiums in and around the venue, right? A lot of people seem to be trying to maximize income through real estate holdings. You have the Battery in Atlanta, you have Ballpark Village in St. Louis, Texas Live in Texas, and so forth, right? There's a bunch of them now. What is your expectation of how that trend will evolve over the coming decades?
I think it's a must. I've worked at many venues and, some of the venues only hosted maybe 10, 15, 20 events a year. I worked at Yankee Stadium. Of course, back then, we had 81 games and we weren't really that good when I worked there in the late 80s. So we didn't have any playoff games. But, when I worked at Disney, we looked at the ESPN World of Sports as being active every single day. And the goal was to be, to have all 9 different venues active every day doing something. Pretty much impossible, but that was our goal. And I think that, whereas in the past where the venue was the attraction to come to the area, if you look at the Battery in Atlanta, I think, which is a perfect example, even Patriot Place up in New England, people go, there 365 days a year to eat, to sleep, to meet, to shop. And then actually if there's an event going on at Gillette Stadium or down in, at Truist Park, go to a ball game or go to a football game or a concert. So I think that's definitely the trend. I think you're seeing that play out a little bit maybe in Chicago where, they want to build a $4.5 billion, $5 billion stadium, dollar stadium, right there on the lakefront. But, they have Arlington Park, which is, they can build a stadium and everything else they want to build. So I think that is, I teach a course at Columbia. We talk about this a lot. If you're building a structure just for sports and you're not using the land properly in the area around, then I think you're making a big mistake.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up the Bears because I was going to ask you about that. It feels like they flip-flop back and forth between the downtown stadium and Arlington Heights a number of times over the last few years, even now at this point. But the latest news is that they're refocusing on Arlington Heights. It sounds like you think a big piece of that is their ability to build infrastructure around the stadium, even though it's not downtown and maybe it's a little bit more of a hike for people.
I think that's the case, but I think the politics in Illinois are playing a large role in whether or not it's going to be able to get the money to build it in Chicago. I mean, I'm reading everything that you're reading, and it does seem like they're kind of leaning to Arlington Park. Now, I have no inside information, but when I think about, the question you asked, do you want to use it 15, 20, 30 times a year? Or do you want a site that you can use 365?
Yeah, and the last question is, how do you think about public money being used to build stadiums? One of the debates we've seen rise, certainly over the last number of years, is taxpayer money used to fund stadiums. My experience, it makes sense in some cases, maybe some cases it doesn't. But how do you approach that topic generally?
Well, once again, because I work with the Giants and I work with the Jets, and you see MetLife Stadium was privately funded, $1.6 billion each team, putting up 800 million to build the venue. So it can be done. It can be done. But I understand that there are some venues. I just read an article about the new arena in Oklahoma City, where there's going to be a lot of publicly funded dollars to build that place. But they made the comment that we need the OC, the team more than they need us. So it's all comes down to leverage. As a taxpayer, I don't know that I'd really want to spend money on a sports venue. But when you look at the economic impact and all the things that come along with it, the pride of the city and the pride of the region, then that kind of changes the dynamic a little bit.
Certainly. We're going to see what happens in Washington, D.C., but that'll be one to watch. Thank you so much for joining us today, Bill.
Joe, thank you.
The clock is winding down here, but we have just enough time for some final buzz. So let's talk about the NFL's Thanksgiving TV strategy. NFL VP of Broadcast Planning Mike Norris said some interesting things on a recent episode of the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Here's the clip.
93 of the top 100 most watched games. Good chunk of those are Cowboys and Chiefs games. Put them together, put them on Thanksgiving. Maybe we can get Taylor to sing the national anthem. We can get people involved beyond just, us avid hardcore football fans. Let's see if we can't really set a record that day. Cowboys, Commanders a couple of years ago, Cowboys, Giants, whatever it was, 42, 43 million on Thanksgiving. I think we got a shot at pushing 48, 49, maybe 50.
Now, North's words are intriguing to me because he said the quiet part out loud in two ways. First, he confirmed that the league is banking on its top two draws in the Chiefs and Cowboys to help deliver a record Thanksgiving Day audience. But secondly, North's tease of a possible Taylor Swift national anthem showed that the league wants to leverage Swift's relationship with Chiefs superstar tight end Travis Kelce for a few million more viewers. Now, I'm not sure if the NFL will be able to convince Taylor Swift to sing the national anthem at a Chiefs away game in Dallas, especially after she got booed by Eagles fans at the last Super Bowl. But it's clear that the league is set on at least pondering the idea, and it could result in NFL television history if they can pull it off. Also, a fun fact, Swift actually sang the national anthem on Thanksgiving Day in 2006, before the Lions-Dolphins game in Detroit. And now, we'll see if she makes a return to Thanksgiving football in 2025, or if she tells the NFL, we are never, ever getting back together. We're all out of time, so it's officially game over for this week. Thank you so much to Bill, and for all of you for joining us. Please make sure to scan the QR code below to follow Yahoo Finance Podcast for more videos and expert insights, and catch us every Thursday wherever you get your podcast. I'm your host, Joe Pompliano. See you next time.
This content was not intended to be financial advice and should not be used as a substitute for professional financial services.